In the summer of 1944, deep in the war-torn fields of France, a strange army rolled quietly into position. But this army was different. Their tanks deflated with a hiss. Their guns were made of rubber. Their soldiers carried paintbrushes instead of rifles. They were the Ghost Army, a secret American unit that fought Hitler not with bullets or bombs, but with art, sound, and illusion. For decades, their story was hidden, classified, nearly forgotten. But when the files were finally unsealed, what emerged sounded like fiction, a story so absurd, so creative, and so daring that it could only be true. This is how a handful of artists, designers, and dreamers became one of World War II's most effective weapons by 1944. The Allies were pushing deeper into Europe after the Normandy landings. But progress came at a cost. Every movement, every buildup, every convoy watched, recorded, and often bombed by German reconnaissance. The Allies needed a way to outthink the enemy, to make the Germans believe they were always in the wrong place, always fighting shadows. So a group of military strategists and theater designers came together and asked a question no one had asked before. What if we could fake an army? That's how the 23rd Headquarters Special Troops was born, a top secret U.S. Army unit whose mission was pure deception. 1,100 men. No heavy artillery, no real armor, just paint, air, sound, and imagination. They were given one impossible task: make the enemy believe that tens of thousands of soldiers were somewhere they weren't. These men weren't ordinary recruits. They were artists, architects, set designers, sound engineers, even ad men from Madison Avenue. Bill Blass would later become one of America's top fashion designers. Ellsworth Kelly, who'd become a world-renowned painter, and hundreds more students from art schools like Pratt, Cooper, Union, Yale, now wearing uniforms and carrying sketchpads alongside rifles. Their battlefield wasn't fought with brute force. It was a stage. And they were the actors, the set builders, the sound crew. And the illusionists, their main weapons were inflatable tanks, huge rubber replicas of Sherman tanks, trucks, and artillery that could be inflated in under half an hour. Once placed in formation, they looked absolutely real from the air. German pilots flying overhead would see hundreds of tanks stretching across fields, tents in neat rows, and trucks rumbling through mud. But if they got close enough, they'd see the truth: canvas and air. The Ghost Army would even paint shadows under their vehicles, smear mud, and leave fake tracks to make it look authentic. One soldier later said, "We'd spend hours painting tanks that would never fire a single shot, but they might save hundreds of lives." But visuals alone weren't enough. The Ghost Army became masters of sound, working with engineers from Hollywood. They recorded the roar of engines, the clatter of tracks, the chaos of men shouting orders, all captured on giant records. Then, using enormous speakers mounted on trucks, they blasted these sounds across the countryside at night. The Germans could hear tanks moving, trucks idling, soldiers talking, all where there were none. Their recordings could be heard up to 15 miles away. They could simulate an entire armored division's movement, complete with radio chatter and engine noise. Every sound was timed and layered. If they wanted the enemy to believe a division was arriving, they'd play the sound of trucks approaching, then unloading, then men setting up camp. It was theater, but on a scale the world had never seen. And that's what they called it: tactical theater. They even faked radio traffic. Ghost Army radio operators memorized the real communication styles of actual units, mimicking their call signs, message rhythms, and even typing quirks. German intelligence often intercepted their transmissions and believed them completely to sell the illusion further. They'd drive jeeps with fake division markings through nearby towns, chatting with locals, planting rumors like actors spreading propaganda. They left trails of evidence for enemy spies to find it was deception at every level: visual, audio, psychological. Their first major performance came at the Seine River in France. The real Allied units were preparing to cross miles away, but needed to draw German attention elsewhere. So the Ghost Army rolled in under cover of night, inflated their fake tanks, set up dummy artillery, turned on the speakers, and made it sound like an entire armored division was gathering for a strike by dawn. German planes spotted what looked like thousands of troops and tanks. They redirected their defenses away from the real crossing. The trick worked perfectly. The real Allied divisions crossed safely, encountering far less resistance. Their success spread quietly through Allied command. And soon, whenever a diversion was needed, one order went out: send in the 23rd TIA. They staged deception after deception at Brest, Saint-Lô, and Metz, each time risking their lives to make the illusion hold just long enough. At Metz, they created the illusion of 2 full divisions, more than 30,000 men with just over 1,000 soldiers and props. They built dummy bridges, blasted sounds of tanks rolling, even used flashing lights at night to mimic artillery fire. And every time, German scouts fell for it. Reports poured into German HQ describing massive Allied reinforcements. That didn't exist, but their most dangerous performance, and perhaps their most brilliant, came in March 1945. The Rhine River stood between the Allies and the heart of Germany. Crossing it would be deadly. Commanders knew the Germans would defend it ferociously, so they called in the Ghost Army for their final act. Operation Viersen. Their mission was to create the illusion that 2 entire divisions, the 30th and 79th Infantry, were preparing to cross at one point. While the real crossing would happen miles away, it was the biggest performance of their lives. They inflated more than 500 fake tanks and trucks. They set up camps with tents, stoves, fake soldiers walking in silhouette. They blasted the sounds of movement, shouting, and engines through the night. Meanwhile, real soldiers miles away prepared for the true crossing. German reconnaissance reported exactly what the Allies wanted them to see. Massive buildup near Viersen. Hitler's generals moved reinforcements to the fake site and left. The real crossing point exposed. On March 23, 1945. The Allies crossed the Rhine with minimal resistance. The Ghost Army's illusion had worked. One of the officers later said, "Okay, we won that night with rubber, sound, and imagination." But the danger they faced was real. If German forces ever discovered the trick, the Ghost Army would have been wiped out instantly. They often worked within artillery range. Several times, their positions were shelled. Inflatable tanks exploded in bursts of air as soldiers scrambled for cover. Some were wounded, others killed, dying in a battle they were never meant to fight. They couldn't fire back. Their orders were to deceive, not destroy. Their only weapon was belief. After each mission, they'd vanish, deflate everything, roll it up, and disappear into the night. Even the soldiers who'd fought beside them had no idea who they were to most Allied troops. They were just a mysterious bunch who arrived, made a lot of noise, and then vanished like ghosts. For decades, no one knew the truth. The Ghost Army's files remained classified until the 1990s. Only then did the world see the photos. Soldiers smiling beside rubber tanks, inflating jeeps like balloons, posing next to painted cannons. At first glance, it looked like a joke. But behind those smiles was genius, courage, and sacrifice. When the files were finally declassified, veterans came forward. Old men, now in their 70s, told stories of painting tanks in the rain, of laughing at the absurdity of it all until a shell landed too close. One said, "I'd rather make a fake tank than drive a real one into battle." But we knew, if our illusion failed, real men would die. Another recalled inflating tanks in the mud as enemy planes passed overhead. Praying the noise of the air pump wouldn't give them away. For every fake tank they built, they knew somewhere out there a real soldier might live because of it. By war's end, the Ghost Army had staged over 20 major deception operations. Historians estimate their illusions saved tens of thousands of lives. When they returned home, they blended back into civilian life. Many became famous artists and designers. Others simply never spoke about it again. One veteran said quietly, "We were artists. We didn't want to kill, but we found a way to fight without taking lives. That was our victory." Decades later, their legacy continues. Modern military deception from the Gulf War to Ukraine traces its roots to the Ghost Army's creativity. Inflatable tanks, false radar signals, fake radio traffic. All inspired by these men with paint and air hoses in 1944, they proved that creativity could win battles. That art, imagination, and illusion could change the course of history. In 2022, after nearly 80 years, the Ghost Army finally received recognition. The U.S. Congress awarded them the Congressional Gold Medal, one of the nation's highest honors. Most of them were gone by then. But the few who lived to see it said the same thing. It's nice to finally be seen. The Ghost Army, a band of artists who turned war into theater. Men who proved that courage isn't always about pulling a trigger. Sometimes it's about making your enemy believe a lie so others can live the truth. Their legacy is more than deception. It's proof that in humanity's darkest hour, imagination can still be our greatest weapon,